I'm your host, Josie Van Dyke, and I am sitting next to the host of the Girls Camp podcast, Mrs. HAYLEY RAWLE, everybody.
Hello, everyone.
Welcome to Weekly Trash.
I'm so excited to be here, genuinely. I'm really excited to be here.
I'm so excited you're here. I kind of told you when I came on your podcast, which everyone go listen if you haven't yet. I shared my whole journey in the LDS faith, but I feel like people don't get to really know the real HAYLEY RAWLE from TikTok or Instagram. You know, you're a little confrontational. You like to tell your truth and share how you feel about the Mormon church. And some people, it's hard for them to listen to. They don't love that. And so maybe they have like a bad taste in their mouth about you. But I can genuinely say you have such like a good aura and energy, and you're so nice. And I want people to see that side of HAYLEY RAWLE, not Girls Camp HAYLEY RAWLE on this podcast. So we might talk a little bit about religion because that's obviously your life, because we have to dumpster deep dive you.
Sure, yeah.
But I just want everyone to know HAYLEY.
I'm excited for that. I think we talked about this a little bit when you came on Girls Camp and we were talking shop beforehand. I think there's almost 3 sort of personas I have.
Yeah.
There's me on Instagram, TikTok, there's me on my podcast, and then there's me in real life. And that's not a persona, that's just me.
Yeah.
I do think it's interesting. I can kind of tell when people know me from social media but probably haven't listened to my podcast.
Yeah.
Because I think I'm confident that, I mean, I don't think probably active Mormon members are probably interested in the content that I'm sharing, but I do know that I'm fair and I'm respectful. I think when I'm on TikTok and Instagram, there's a little more cheekiness. There's a little more playing into that type of thing. So yeah, I'm really excited for the opportunity to talk about all of the other things, because believe it or not, talking about Mormonism is not my whole personality.
It's not.
It's not.
Shocker, everybody.
Yeah, I know. That will surprise some people.
No, it definitely will, because half my audience is for sure Mormon. And that's a big reason why I was like, I want HAYLEY to come on so they can hear who HAYLEY really is. And not that I think you care, because I don't think you do, which is something that I admire from you, is you don't give a rip. You're like, I am who I am. I believe what I believe. I feel how I feel. If you don't like it, it's not for you. You don't try to cater to anybody, which I find extremely impressive and I admire about you, because I have a hard time with that sometimes. But I still want people to leave this episode and be like, wait, I really like HAYLEY. Like, I think I'm in love with HAYLEY. So
I hope they listen. We'll see.
They will. They better. Everybody listen. Give HAYLEY a shot if you're Mormon. Come on. Okay.
Yeah, seriously.
Okay, HAYLEY, let's dumpster deep dive you. We'll start from the beginning. Where are you from? Sorry to interrupt, but today's episode is brought to you by Spearmint Love. You guys know how much I love Spearmint Love and all their fun prints and designs. But this season, Spearmint Love has everything you need to make Christmas extra special with their huge selection of adorable holiday outfits and prints. This year, they introduced not only matching mom and child lounge sets, but also matching mom and mini oversized knit sweaters. I could die. So freaking cute, cozy, and oversized. Perfect for chilly days and festive family photos. The lounge sets come in sizes 0 to 3 month to 12 years old for your babies or older siblings. And then for women, the sizes go from extra small to 3XL. So there's something for everyone. Spearmint Love isn't just another baby boutique. It's a trusted name in the baby space, known for its own exclusive collections, which I love, and a huge selection of high-quality baby essentials and holiday outfits. From their headquarters in sunny Arizona, they offer fast shipping to get your Christmas favorites to you on time. Now, we all know it's Christmas season. You're trying to get those matching jammies. You're trying to find out those cute fits. Head on over to spearmintlove.com and use code WEEKLYTRASH for an exclusive 25% off your order. That's right, spearmintlove.com and use code WEEKLYTRASH for 25% off your order. And thank you, Spearmint Love, for sponsoring today's episode.
I am from Provo, Utah.
Shocker.
Good old Provo.
And what's your family like? Big, small?
So I have 2 sisters. I'm in between them. We're all 2 years apart. And then a little baby brother who came 9 years after my sister, right beneath me. So my parents were actually mid-separation. My mom got pregnant and she went to my dad and said, I'm pregnant. And he said, with whose baby? And she said, it's yours. So he was very much in the midst of that. They stayed together a little bit longer and then ended up divorcing pretty soon after he was born. The reason I tell that whole story is because it feels different than just saying I have 3 siblings, because it's very much, it kind of feels like there were the 3 of us and then Mitchell at the end.
Okay, so your parents, so how old were you when that was happening? 9?
My little sister was 9. So when
Okay.
my parents ended up actually getting divorced, I believe I was 13.
That's kind of a hard time to go through that.
It was a weird age. I am such a proponent of divorce, and maybe especially in the circumstances that my parents were in. I remember my mom sat us down and she said, we're getting divorced. And she said something about, I just really don't want I don't want your grades to suffer, was worried about us. And we were kind of looking at each other like, we're going to be fine.
Yeah.
Not because it's not a significant thing, but my dad was in and out of the home at that point. They had been separated off and on. The divorce, I actually think I look at it as a really good thing, even for that age, because we were kind of just able to gain more stability.
Yeah.
And there was just it was hard having my dad around with what he was dealing with at the time, drug addiction, alcoholism.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yes. So he recently passed as well.
Yes.
Sorry if I'm jumping ahead.
No,
but
we can talk about that now because that's a huge part of your life.
Yeah.
So he was an addict during that time, and you were aware of that.
Yes, he was, as far back as I can remember, he had addiction issues, alcoholism, drug addiction. I don't remember when I exactly figured out that's what it was because we were so small that eventually we kind of figured out. We were eventually told, but my whole childhood in and out of rehabs. There was one Christmas we spent in rehab. So yes, I feel like the divorce was actually a nice thing in the sense that it just allowed us, I think my sisters and my mom and my brother and I, we kind of created our own stability. And then he could kind of work his own stuff out. Yeah. And it wasn't as tumultuous in the home.
Was he a member of the Church of Jesus Christ?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
He was?
Yep. So he went on a mission. He actually went on a mission where I went on a mission, which was really cool. He did all of the things. He, I think, experimented in high school with drugs and alcohol and then cleaned up for the mission, went on a mission, got home, went to BYU. During BYU law school, had a lot of anxiety, ended up getting addicted to, I believe it was Xanax or something in that realm, and then kind of spiraled from there.
So even when he married your mom, he was struggling with addiction.
I wonder about that specific time. I think when he got married, no. I think it was because he got married really soon after his mission. So while he was at law school, my mom, I think I was a baby while he was at law school. So my mom was working at Albertsons, doing the night shift.
Albertsons.
Yes.
Does anybody remember Albertsons? Raise your hand.
Remember Albertsons?
That's good. Wow, that just took me back to like
isn't that
2001.
crazy?
Okay,
I actually think my mom,
store.
It was either me or my little sister, went into labor while being a cashier at Albertsons while my dad was in law school. And she said, hey, I think I'm like going into labor. And her manager was like, okay, well, your shift ends in about an hour. Can you believe?
No, that's insane.
So she just finished her shift and
She's
then
like,
went to the hospital.
Sorry, I'm leaking. Let me just like, check out your stuff real quick.
Getting someone's groceries in the
How
bag.
many bananas do you have? Oh my gosh.
Crazy, right?
That's insane.
Yeah.
So your family dynamic obviously was different than people around you then.
Mm-hmm.
Did you feel uncomfortable in high school knowing that like your dad was struggling? Like, did people know that? Were you open about that with your friends?
I remember the first time, this is kind of a funny story. This was more middle school. And one of my friends knew that my parents were getting divorced, but none of my other friends knew. I was super embarrassed about it. None of my other friends had divorced parents or, anything similar to that.
Yeah.
And we were all hanging out one night at my best friend's house. And she said something to me. She asked me, are you going to see your dad this weekend? And my other friend, Tanner, was like, what are you talking about? And my other friend said her parents are getting divorced, and he thought she was joking. And he was like, oh, haha, that's so funny. And I was like, no, they actually are. And then the next day he brought me a homemade loaf of bread and jam. And he was like, I'm so sorry that I made a joke about that.
What a sweet boy.
Just little, like, how old were we? 14? Just figuring it all out at the time. But yes, I do feel like it was very different. There was a lot of shame. I feel like I grew out of that more so in high school to some extent.
Yeah.
Just becoming more of a mature, more mature than I was before person, and being able to put words to it and confide in friends and things like that. But it was definitely felt different than most of the people I was around.
Do you feel like because your dad struggled with addiction, it kind of solidified your feelings on maybe the word of wisdom and like those teachings in the church where you're like, oh yeah, like my dad did this and that's why like he's on this path and we're going to stay on this path and we're going to do this. Was that like a big factor at all?
Totally. I mean, even still, I would say as of very recently, I have deconstructed my feelings even around alcohol.
Yeah.
There was so much of my life that it was so evil. It was like the epitome of evil to me because everything that was, you know, my family had fallen apart because of it. And I remember I would see sometimes like a can of beer that my dad had left out, and it was just like so scary and frightening. And so after I left the church, there was a lot of time where I had to be really slow and really careful. And now I've actually found it in a lot of ways kind of empowering. I mean, I drink maybe a couple of times a month, if that, but it's been nice to realize, oh, he had an addiction, he had a disease. And yes, alcohol can be very dangerous, especially for people who are predisposed to addiction. But I think to me now, it's less about the alcohol and more about the disease and how he was using it, if that makes sense. So it's been kind of nice almost to realize, oh, I can drink a glass of wine at dinner and it's no big deal for me personally.
Take that power back of, you know, you're in control of your actions and yourself.
Exactly.
So was that the reason why your father passed away? Was it his liver? Was it, because I remember you posted about it. It seemed like it was a surprise. Like it wasn't something that you saw coming.
Super sudden. Yeah, super sudden. It was his heart. I do think that his body, he was 54. I do think his body was in bad shape from years of abuse, alcohol, drugs.
Was he sober at the time?
He was sober at the time. He had a scare a year prior where it was low sodium or something. And he went to the hospital and they were like, you need to improve your habits, just healthy eating, things like that. And so we knew that there was heart issues, but obviously didn't know he was going to die. So when he died of a heart attack, so it wasn't directly related to alcoholism or anything, but I do feel like his body had probably suffered a lot just from years and years of that.
Well, I'm so sorry for your loss, because losing your dad it's honestly something, losing your parents is something that I'm not looking forward to at all. It's a huge loss in your life.
Yeah.
When you found out, what was your grieving process like?
Yeah, that's a great question. It is such an interesting thing. I feel like you have to grieve the person and losing a parent. What I didn't anticipate with my grief was how existential the grief felt.
Okay, I'm dumb, so I'm going to need you to give me a definition.
I would love to.
Can you use that in a sentence?
I would love
please?
to. Yes, I had to grieve my dad and missing him and not being around him anymore and what our relationship was and what it wasn't and all of those things. But it was also the first time that I've been that close to death, and more so reckoning with the permanence of death. What do I think about death? What do I think about an afterlife? What is even the purpose of this life?
Yeah.
Because I just had never really had to confront that. And so I think that the grief process was difficult as is, but that additional aspect of things was really disorienting and unexpected. And my mom actually recently lost her mom, so my grandma passed away. And it was interesting to watch her go through that and realize I had to go through that before even my mom did, because both of her parents were still alive. Both of my dad's parents were still alive. So I think it made me feel old in a really interesting way of like, wow, I outlived one of my parents.
Yeah.
And so many people around me, my mom even, still have their parents alive. So it was just a very weird kind of disorienting experience.
Yeah.
It's gotten better over time for sure, but it was a doozy, as you can imagine.
I can't, and I'm so sorry that you had to go through that. Do you think your grieving would have been different if you were still a faithful member of the church?
Totally. I think that I deconstructed my faith, and it was very easy to say, yeah, I don't know what I believe about God or an afterlife and all of these things. And then when my dad died, shit hit the fan. And it was like, okay, I've been able to say, well, I don't really know, and da 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 da. But now that actually is relevant to me in a different way. I do feel glad for how deconstructed I was at the time, because I was so certain about what I do believe, or I guess don't believe, because there's a lot of unknowns in my current belief framework. But I do think it allowed me to really, really sit with death in a way that I personally don't think I would have been able to within the Mormon framework. And that's obviously a completely personal thing. I definitely had moments of wishing that I believed certain things about the afterlife, but yeah, I don't know. It's funny because I think sometimes people think like, oh, well, wouldn't that
help you heal?
Yes, or make you want to come back to maybe a belief framework like that. I wish sometimes I believed that way. I don't think I ever could again. So there was kind of maybe a little bit of grief too of, wow, that would be such a nice thing if I believed that were true.
Yeah.
But I think all considered, I'm glad for the way that I sat with it based on my current belief system, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Do you believe in God?
I consider myself agnostic.
Okay.
So yeah, agnostic meaning that I don't know, and I'm not sure if there's a way to ever really know.
Yeah.
But also I am not closed off to some higher being, higher power. I've had some powerful experiences in the church, outside of the church, around just feeling connected to something.
Yeah. The universe,
love, goodness, nature.
Good vibes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I would say I'm agnostic, and I think that's probably where I'll stay, but who knows? I've changed a lot in my life, so you never know.
You have the whole life to change your mind
totally.
on things. Have you had any experiences feeling your dad's presence since he's left?
That's a good question. I feel like the way that I've connected with him since he's died is through music. Okay. We had a very shared sense of taste in music. He loved the Killers, for example. So my siblings and I just went to the Killers 20-year anniversary of their first album. We went to their concert. So through things like that, I feel like there's been, a connection. Nothing really, super tangible. Yeah. But I do still feel connected. And I think it was always kind of how we connected with each other, was sending songs or have you seen this TV show, or sending things like that. So I feel like that's how I still feel connected to him.
Well, I love that you have that.
Yeah, it's nice.
You're very intellectual, smart, almost kind of serious, but also not. You're very like soft and sweet, but you have a serious side to you. Were you like that growing up? Like the more intellectual, serious sister, or fun and crazy, and then all of a sudden life got hard and grew up?
I love that question. I remember even as far back as high school, and I will do my best to explain this without sounding so pick me.
Hey, no.
But I feel like I always related to very different types of people. I had a group of friends that we would talk about poetry, and we would listen to vinyl, and more,
hipster.
for the time, hipster and intellectual. And I was writing, I had a blog, but then I was also really close friends with cheerleaders and jocks. Not that those are mutually exclusive.
Right.
There's, those are not mutually exclusive.
They can do whatever
at all. Yes. But
the stereotype.
Totally. And just different sorts of people. People who were really into more intellectual things, people who were not at all. And I've always felt just not even like a chameleon, maybe more so just like I'm an interesting mix of both of those things in both of those worlds. And so, I think it's always been present, both of those sides of me.
Well, and it's an amazing thing to have. Like, you're so smart, and you do a really good job of speaking your feelings. What's the word? You're very
articulate.
Thank you, Dictionary Haley. And that's something I also very much envy because I'm not that way. Would you consider yourself a smart person? Like, did you get good grades? Were you a good student?
I loved school.
Okay, yeah, we're so different.
I loved it. Like my favorite peak feeling was taking a test and being like, what did I get on that test? I loved it. Since I was a kid, I mean, do you remember the DRP, degrees of reading power test?
No, because I wasn't paying attention in school.
This goes to show how much I cared, probably too much.
Yeah.
But one of my best friends and I, all through school, we've known each other since elementary school. It was like, what'd you get on the DRP? And then what did you get on the ACT eventually?
What did you get on the ACT?
I got a 30 on the ACT.
Oh! Okay, goodbye. I got an 18, but I literally guessed on every single question. So I'm just glad I got an 18.
You know what? The thing is, it doesn't even matter at all.
No, that's amazing. You are so smart.
That's nice of you. I feel like my brain is well suited for academics, and it's been interesting because my husband, he has ADHD and he's so smart, so talented, so creative. He just never felt like the school system suited his brain, suited his personality. And it's so sad because talking to him about his upbringing, he'll tell me, I just felt stupid all the time. And he's not at all.
Yeah.
He's just not a standardized test guy. I was a standardized test girl. I loved the spelling bee and the quiz bowl and shit like that. Yeah. So for me, I feel like I was always validated by the school system just because that's kind of how I operate. And it's been really eye-opening for me to learn about Bentley, that's my husband's name, and just realize the failure of the school system to accommodate different types of intelligence. Yeah. It's really sad.
No, it is. I can relate to Bentley a lot that way. I never felt like school was for me. I actually got diagnosed with ADHD when I was in high school. They gave me Adderall and it literally just like mellowed me out and I became like so chill. And I was like, wait, now I missed like the fun part of me.
Yeah, totally.
So I stopped taking it. And then I see people who take Adderall for like funsies because they're like, it gets me like zoned in. And I'm like, it doesn't do that for me. So that's a bummer because I wish I had that. And I just felt like school never was for me. And I felt stupid, like totally stupid. So that's another reason why I'm really jealous of you because I'm like, you like got good grades? Like, how would it be?
I know. It's so sad though because it shouldn't be that way.
No. And there's different kinds of smarts.
Exactly.
And you went to BYU, right? Mm-hmm. Did you start before you went on your mission?
Yes. I went to a year of BYU before my mission.
And remind me where you served.
Berlin, Germany.
Guten Tag. I actually knew this. We talked about this at Daily Essential Co.'s party. And I was like, Guten Tag, das Wetter ist schön. Ich heiße Josie. Wie heißt du?
Honestly, that sounds really good.
That's all I know.
I mean, not that I am the arbiter of what's good German, but it sounds good to me.
That's all I know. I said the weather is good, I think. That's what I said. But Germany. Okay, so your mission, is that something you felt passionate about doing or did you feel any pressure about going on a mission? Because that wasn't something girls necessarily feel the pressure when it comes to the mission. Men feel the pressure, but women, it's kind of like, well, if you're not married, sure.
It's more of a choice. Yeah. So I actually, when I was, I want to say 4 years old, I walked into my mom's room. She had put me to bed and I said, Mom, I've been thinking, I think it's probably really hard to be an adult, but it's hard to be a kid too. And by the way, I don't think I'll go on a mission. I told her that when I was 4.
Yeah. Intellectual.
Well, I guess I was just laying there like thinking about missions and I was like, I don't think I want to do that. And so I never planned on going on a mission. I wanted to actually go to school out of state. I was going to apply for schools mainly in California. I was going to take a very, very long shot at maybe an Ivy League school. I was going to play up the whole Mormon woman thing at that point. And in the process of applying for schools, this was my senior year of high school, the mission age had changed. So women could now go at 19. So when that happened, I was like, okay, maybe. I was for sure not going to go at 21. And so anyway, while I was applying for schools, I got my patriarchal blessing. And my patriarchal blessing, for those who don't know, that's a special blessing that you get once in your lifetime as a Mormon person. And it said, you will serve a full-time 18-month mission. And so I was like, okay, I'm going to go on a mission. And then I changed all my plans. I applied just for BYU. I wanted to be closer to home if I was going to go on a mission. I wanted to be at a church school. I wanted to go somewhere cheaper. So I kind of shifted my whole trajectory just based on my patriarchal blessing.
Now, before I ask you about your mission, do you regret doing that?
I don't regret it. I do think the further I get from my mission, the more, I mean, it's such a mixed bag.
Yeah.
I think it's one of those things, like maybe if you asked someone, do you regret marrying if they've gotten divorced? Do you regret marrying them? It's like, I don't know, because now my life is what it is.
Yeah.
And I'm really grateful for the opportunities that I had. I am really glad I think I went on a mission. But I have complicated feelings about what the mission was. And so it's kind of complicated, but I would say no, I don't regret it because I like where I'm at now.
If you knew you could have the exact same life without going on a mission, would you still go? You wouldn't get to experience those, 18 months. It's 18 months for girls, right?
Yeah.
You wouldn't get to experience those 18 months. You wouldn't get to meet the people you met. Would you do it still?
I think I would say I would probably do it if I was still in that mindset.
Yeah.
Obviously, I don't believe it anymore, so I wouldn't
Right.
go out and teach people something I don't
Right.
believe. But I would have approached it a lot differently. I would have been more relaxed. I wouldn't have taken it so seriously. And I say that because I think the harmful part of it was how seriously I took it and how hard that was on my mental health. I would have just had a more relaxed approach and then probably been able to still get all of the good things without as much of the bad things.
What were the bad things? Because you're an overachiever. So was it you being stressed that you weren't getting enough baptisms?
Yeah, it was a lot of really focusing on numbers, really pushing myself to, I say uncomfortable situations. I don't think I was ever in danger, but just kind of being too pushy with people. I had a lot of weird eating stuff on my mission, which I think is really common for women, especially. I wouldn't call it an eating disorder, but I think I had disordered eating. There was just a lot outside of my control. You get fed a lot by people.
So overeating.
Yes.
Okay.
Well, I would overeat, and then I would, like my whole mission, I never had butter. I didn't touch butter on my mission. And Germans, half of their diet is bread. It was just a food in my head, like a danger
Scary food
that I was like, I will not eat butter. So I would go to dinner. There would be bread. I wouldn't put butter on my bread, and then I'd go home and eat like a giant Milka chocolate bar. But I just felt safe if I didn't touch the butter. Yeah.
Well, because you always see women when they go on their missions, they're like, I gained 50 pounds on my mission.
A lot of women do.
Unless they go to like Honduras, like my husband. I told you this when I saw you. He lost 100 pounds on his mission because there was nothing to really eat.
Did he get really sick too? I know a lot of people get sick.
He had all kinds of digestion, worms.
Nightmare.
I honestly don't know how people do it.
I don't think I could have done that type of mission.
When people get called to serve in places like that, you send me there for a day. I'll do a couple of days, get a feel, do some service for others. And then the minute you put something on my plate that looks like it should not be edible, I'm out. No. And Germany food, I don't really like German food, but it's still like good food, where it's like other places, it's like I'm eating the butthole of a pig. Like, what is this?
And your body's not used to it. So you often get sick. My husband served in Mexico, and his poor body, I think, is still not the same. His digestion is permanently messed up.
It's messed up. Mm-hmm. It's scary.
Yeah.
So you didn't eat butter.
Didn't eat butter. Ate a lot of chocolate though.
No butter. Great chocolate though.
Such good chocolate.
The best chocolate in the world.
Really good pastries.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So did you have any friends? Like, did you make lifelong friends on the mission? Or do you feel like you were so focused on the actual baptism part that you didn't focus on making connections with the other missionaries?
I made great friends on the mission. I'm trying to think I'm still in contact with a lot of people from the mission. I don't really see people all that frequently from the mission. I do feel like I made great friends. I do feel like there's something very unique about a mission that, again, the further I get from it, the more I think that probably wasn't very healthy. But I do think that for a year and a half of my life, I got up every single day and did something that I really didn't want to do. For a year and a half, that's a long time. Yeah. And I'm proud of that in a way. I'm proud that I did it. But I say that, and if anyone's listening who went on a mission and went home early or anything. There's also a part of me who thinks I was struggling so bad at certain points. Maybe I should have just gone home. That would have maybe been a braver thing to do. So it's all really complicated. But I do think probably the thing about the mission experience that I treasure the most was how world expanding it was for me, how eye-opening. Ironically, I think it was the beginning of my faith transition because I grew up in Provo.
Had you ever been out of the country before?
I had been to Mexico, resorts.
Yeah, that doesn't count.
Resorts in Mexico.
Yeah. It's
So
like a bubble.
Very much a bubble. And all growing up as a teenager, I would always say, Utah's not a bubble. Provo's not a bubble. I'm so
really,
I'm cultured.
I'm well versed.
I
in
know
life.
shit about shit, and I knew nothing. And so, being in Germany, being around so many different people, I was in Germany, so I got a lot of German culture. I also taught a lot of people from West Africa, Nigeria, and Ghana. So I got a ton of that culture.
Very
I
diverse.
had a lot of Middle Eastern culture. So I just learned so much and met so many people that I wouldn't otherwise in just a very unique capacity. And I'm really grateful for that aspect of it specifically.
What was the main reason why you didn't come home? Was it fear of judgment? Was it because you're an overachiever?
It didn't feel like an option. It's such an interesting psychological phenomenon. There were times, and maybe trigger warning on this, but I remember thinking, okay, how can I go home without just going home? And I was going to stop eating because I thought, okay, if I get anorexia, then they'll have to send me home. And then when I go home, it won't be, oh, it was too hard or I couldn't do it. It would be, well, I got anorexia.
You have an excuse.
Yeah.
A valid excuse.
Yes, which is so awful because anorexia is a deadly disease that affects so many people. Eating disorders are so, I just don't want it to be taken lightly that I was like, let me just develop an eating disorder.
No.
But I think that just shows my mindset. I didn't think I could just go home. I remember when I was out there at my hardest times, I would go through a list in my head and I would be like, okay, my dad did this. My aunt did this. My high school boyfriend did this. My other high school friend did this. Like so-and-so did this. And I just thought like, why? I have to be able to do this. Yeah. So many people have done it. And I just never considered actually going home, but I considered getting anorexia so I could get sent home. So it's a weird psychological situation.
Yeah.
And I think probably I just felt like, I don't know, before my mission, I'm a very talkative person. I was on the debate team. So people would say, you're going to be such a good missionary because you're good at talking or whatever. And
making your point.
Yes.
Yeah.
It just would have been too disappointing, I think. Yeah. To other people, yes. I think my family would have been fine. But I think mostly to myself, once I had committed, I just had to do it.
And you did it.
And I did it.
You did it.
Every single day of those 18 months.
You came home. Were you so relieved to come home?
I was very excited and relieved to come home. I stepped into sort of another whirlwind because Bentley, my now husband, wrote me on my mission.
Was
kind
he
of a cold
high
call.
School boyfriend? Like, how'd you guys meet?
So crazy. I knew of him.
Okay.
He had dated one of my good friends very briefly. We had never met, but I knew who he was. He was a year older than me. His cousin went to my school. Lots of connections because he's from Highland. So
yeah, he went to Lone Peak. We talked about that.
Yes. So he wrote me in my last 3 months of my mission. I had actually been writing someone else the entirety of my mission that we had started dating a couple weeks before I left, and he was a return missionary. So it was kind of crazy. He wrote me my whole mission.
Yeah, that he didn't like swoop someone up while you were gone.
I remember every week I was surprised that he was still writing me. But then Bentley wrote me, and it was kind of an immediate, this feels different. Bentley's very unique. He was very, very open from the beginning. He was like, I would love to get to know you. I'd love to write you. I'd love to take you on dates when you're home. And so I started feeling a pull towards him. I also had a massive crush on an elder on my mission, one of the boys on my mission. So it was a very strange time because I kind of loved this elder. I loved this other guy. And then Bentley was writing me. And so when I got home, I was kind of having to figure all of that out.
Yeah.
And then Bentley and I ended up getting engaged 2 months after my mission.
Oh, so you figured it out pretty quick.
Well, yeah.
You're like,
well,
eeny, meeny, miny,
I don't know if I would say it was figured out, but we did get engaged and then married.
Okay, so it wasn't fully figured out. I do think when people say they had crushes on people they went on missions with, I think there's this sense of like these feelings are naughty, and it kind of makes it more fun and sexy. 100%. It's like we can't touch, we can't hug, and it's you fantasize about it and you romanticize it a lot.
Yes.
Today's episode is brought to you by Anew Therapy. Anew is a mental health clinic in Sandy that specializes in ketamine. Ketamine therapy is a breakthrough treatment for those suffering from severe anxiety, depression, and PTSD, among other things. Treatments are administered in a safe and controlled environment by their team of experienced healthcare professionals. Unlike traditional medications, ketamine works quickly. On average, 80% of Anew Therapy patients have reduced their depression and anxiety scores by half or more by their last treatment. I am proof of that. Most of you know this if you're an avid listener, but I completed 6 sessions of ketamine at Anew in the end of July. I have struggled with depression and anxiety my entire life and have been medicated since I was 13. So ketamine was a huge thing for my mental health journey. But one of my biggest takeaways I took from my sessions at Anew is just how important the setting is. You have to feel calm, relaxed, comfortable, but most importantly, safe. They do such a good job at creating a peaceful, zen, sacred space for you to really get the most out of your ketamine sessions. I don't think ketamine is for everyone, but I do think if you're interested in ketamine, Anew is the best place to do it. So if you're interested or have questions, visit anewtherapyutah.com, ANEWTHERAPYUTAH.com to book your free consultation today. Totally free, no obligation. And if you find that ketamine therapy is right for you, you can use code JOSIE75 to receive $75 off your first treatment. And thanks again, Anew, for sponsoring today's episode and changing my life. It's like the same people why people cheat too. It's like this forbidden thing. It's like, the curiosity of it all.
Totally.
So I can see why, you're sitting there like, oh, what do I do? Who do I choose? What's going on? But you obviously chose Bentley. But when did you feel like, okay, yeah, I feel good about this decision?
A year into my marriage.
Really?
Yeah. And I'm happy to share that because of where Bentley and I are at now.
Yeah.
I was 20 years old. I was fresh off of a mission. I was under a different mindset. I wanted to have sex.
Mm-hmm.
And so Bentley and I got married way too fast. And I think we struggled in our marriage significantly because I just didn't give myself time. I didn't even, so the elder who I had a crush on, I was engaged before he even got home from his mission.
Oh, so you didn't even get to see that, where that would lead.
And so funny enough, he became friends with some of our friends. We made mutual friends and I hung out with him like a year into my marriage. And I was like, oh,
thank God.
Yeah. Well, I just realized I was like, I was in a very different mindset on a mission. To your point, there's forbiddenness. There's also, you're feeling the spirit together. Yeah. You're in people's homes together in Germany praying and teaching the gospel. It's not a very... And I mean, tons of people meet and get married from their missions, which I think is lovely. I think that'd be really fun to share that experience. But I realized, I had imagined this person was something that they're just really not. Yeah. And so anyway, I struggled with that throughout the first year of my marriage. Marriage was hard. We didn't know each other very well. And then I had all of these feelings of I didn't get to date anyone since coming home from my mission. Yeah. And it's not that Bentley even pressured me. I think I just really fell in love with Bentley. And then once I was in love with him and we were in that mindset that we were in, it's like, well, then you just get married. Yeah. So anyway, I think that, in this amount of hindsight, so glad how it all worked out. But I do think the first years of my marriage were hard because of how quickly we got married.
And I think a lot of people can relate to that. I know I can. We got married. I was 20 years old. We only dated for a year, got married. I mean, how long were you engaged?
3 months.
So 5 months total.
I was not home from my mission for more than 6 months by the time I was married.
And were your parents excited? Were they nervous? Like, what were their thoughts?
My dad had always warned me against that, because my dad said that a lot of his issues, he believes, was because he had to grow up too fast. He got married really quickly. Yeah. He had kids really quickly. And he never fully left the church, but he was inactive most of my life. And I think he saw a lot of problems with the culture of the church. And so one of his biggest things, both he and my mom always said, get an education, because my mom didn't get an education, and that came back to bite her. Get an education. Don't rush to get married. Don't rush to have kids. And so here I am 2 months off the mission. 2 weeks after the mission, I was like, I'm going to marry him. My mom learned long ago not to tell me what to do. Yeah. So she's like, well, whatever. My mom had also gotten remarried to my stepdad, and they met and got married within 4 months.
While you were on the mission?
Right before I left for the mission, they got married.
Oh, okay.
So she had no legs to stand on. Yeah. She was like, I could have just been like, well, Mom, you did it in 4 months.
Yeah.
My dad, he was distanced enough at the time that he didn't really have any say, and I think he knew it. And he met Bentley, and I think once you meet Bentley, he's such a uniquely genuine soul. I always joke with him, like, you couldn't fake it if you wanted to. Like, you just don't have it in you.
Yeah.
And so I think once my dad met Bentley, he knew that Bentley was a good guy. He did tell Bentley, like, she has to finish her education, which of course I was going to anyway. So there was a little bit of kind of weirdness, but I think it's not all that unique for the culture. No. It was fast. It was faster than even the culture often is. But I think my parents were a little wary, but just were like, Haley's gonna do what she's gonna do, as she has done.
Yeah. So when you got married, what were you doing for work? Because if you finished school, did you finish school before? Or?
No, we were still in school. So we finished school I worked on campus for a while. Bentley actually got a job at Vivint doing in-house video stuff. So he was doing that while I was doing his homework, basically.
That's a relationship right here. That's teamwork.
Oh, I've done so many people's homework. That's the curse of being academic minded. I did my mom went back to school.
Oh, amazing.
When I was in high school. So she would pay me to write her essays.
No, that's actually incredible. I hope none of her professors are listening.
I know. No, UVU professors.
No,
Public
you're
health.
So smart. Oh, I cheated with all my friends that were like you, that were smart. I was like, I will give you whatever you want. Give me your paper. Let me freaking copy it.
Well, writing, I think, is something that is a lot of people struggle with. It's super hard to write, and I have always liked writing, and I'm fast at it. So I would watch Bentley just suffer for like days, and I'd be like, okay, what do you have? And it was like a paragraph, and I'm like, fuck this. I'm just going to write your paper. And then I would just write his paper. And he was working at the time. He had a full-time job, which was unique while going to school. So that set us up that we could buy a home. And anyway, it was balanced in some way. Yeah. But I still get shit from some of my friends. That I had a friend who was like, that is not
honest.
Yeah. Like the integrity. I'm like, whatever. I couldn't care less. Anyway, all that to say, we both were in school and working, and that's hard too. Very hard. I look at people, my nanny, she's currently going to school and her husband's in school, and they just got married and they're quite young. And I think about that time, and that was a really, really hard time.
It's a really hard time. You're figuring out yourself. You're figuring out life. Life is a lot. There's insurance, there's bills, there's just day-to-day things that you don't even think about when you have parents that do it for you, that pay the things and do the things. So it's a lot of moving parts when you get married so young.
And you're still trying to, financially, the one good thing is we could get government grants at that point. So I feel really lucky for that. But yeah, I think it was a really tumultuous time. And that was also, as is often the case in early 20s, that's when a lot of mental health stuff popped up for me, pretty severe anxiety and depression. I ended up going to the urgent care because I thought I was having heart problems, like a heart attack. I don't know what I thought. And they were like, this is anxiety. They were like, we can check your heart. I was just having, it was panic attacks, but it was like almost low grade panic attacks all the time, where like my heart was always racing. I always felt like I was going to pass out. I had a lot of weird body stuff. Like I was always afraid that something was going wrong in my body. So I would fixate on sensations in my body and then that would make it feel worse.
Yeah, so intense
and
anxiety.
then I would Google it.
Oh yeah, never
be like,
Google.
why is my hand
WebMD?
feeling weird?
Yeah.
And they're like, because you're dying,
you
bitch.
have cancer.
Yes.
Like, you're like,
seriously.
please no.
No, my therapist, the first thing she told me was, you can't get on Google.
Yeah.
She's like, if you need to Google something, ask Bentley and he can Google it for you.
Did you go to therapy during that time or not till recently?
I went to therapy during that time. I've been in therapy off and on since early college years.
Okay.
BYU had free therapy actually, which was great.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah, it was great.
I didn't know that.
And my therapists were awesome.
Every college should do that.
I know.
Is that a normal thing? All the other colleges? I feel like it should be.
I don't know. But
Do you watch Tell Me Lies? Sorry, off topic.
No, you mentioned that
Oh
during
my
our
gosh.
episode. And
I can't shut up about it.
Well, I need to watch it.
literally
I
can't.
need a new show.
But like their college absolutely needs a therapist. It's like
it's a college
it's
show.
a college kids.
Okay, I want to watch it.
And those people need therapy. So every college, if you're listening,
Yes.
if you're a college
Take
goer,
advantage for real.
That's amazing.
It was huge. My therapists, I went to 2 there. We went to couples therapy there too, also free.
Oh, okay.
Neither of them were Mormon, weirdly.
Wait, that is so
Mhm.
interesting.
Yeah, I think people will go if they're in something like residency. I don't know, but
Okay.
as
To get their
during,
hours.
yeah, that
Okay,
type of thing.
okay,
So
gotcha.
anyway, I had a great experience with that, but went to therapy and then was still having that panic attack stuff, and then that's when I got medicated. SSRIs, baby.
Zoloft?
Prozac.
It's okay. We're like
SSRIs,
sisters.
right?
We're
Yes.
sisters.
We can fist bump.
I'm actually on like sertraline.
Sertraline. I think
yeah.
my sister's on
It's
that
like
one.
the Zoloft generic,
Yes.
cheaper.
Yes.
You know. And you're still on it.
Yes.
Okay.
I went off while I was pregnant, and that was not great. And I got
Yeah.
back on, and I don't know if they say try occasionally,
yeah.
so I'll try, but it's probably lifelong.
Yeah.
I love it. I don't have any side effects. I know that's kind of rare. I take a small dose, and it's been life-changing.
I'm so glad.
I love it.
There is such a stigma around medication. It's like, I don't want to take something for the rest of my life. I've been taking it since I was 16 and I wouldn't be here without it.
Yes.
And so like,
Worth it.
I get the stigma. I get how it's like a scary thing. You're putting an SSRI in your body and you don't know what's going to happen. And sometimes it can make things worse. I mean, you got to try different medications, but at the end of the day, you being here is so much more important.
Yep.
Like if you need to take it, take it.
Yep. I
Take
agree.
it.
I agree. I think that a lot of people will say do you know Ash Adams?
Yeah.
Yes.
She, red hair.
Yes.
Yes. I follow her on TikTok.
She's incredible. She went on a journey for, 3 years where she was exercising, changed the way she ate. She did all the things they say you could do. Infrared, cold plunging, anything you can think of. And she was depressed and she got on an SSRI and now she feels better. And I like to think that there's lots of things we can do for our mental health, but I do think there are chemical imbalances. And for me, I couldn't get my ass out of bed to work out when I was depressed.
Yeah.
And then I took Prozac and now I can get my ass out of bed.
Yeah.
So it's a win-win. So anyway, I will preach antidepressants till the day I die because they've been so huge for me.
Well, and I'm glad you went on it and did it. So when
Yeah.
you weren't on it when you were pregnant, let's talk about your pregnancy a little bit.
Yes.
Because you have twins.
I have
and I
twins.
was so fortunate to get to meet them the other day when I came to your house. And guys, they are the cutest little things. I told Haley they need to be models.
Don't you want to
Like,
eat them up? They're
No,
so cute.
they're so adorable. They need to model for Zara immediately.
Let me
or
show
like,
you this photo I
Or
took
like
today.
Elwood, what's that called? Stop it.
Is
like,
that not a Zara campaign?
No, they need to be in the Zara campaign, the H&M campaign, all the campaigns. They are so freaking cute.
Thank you.
But how did they get here? Was that natural? Did you struggle with infertility? Did you do IVF? Give me the whole spiel.
Yes. So I had a hunch that
Okay.
I was going to have infertility. I say it's a hunch, but I also was having unprotected sex for 2 years
Yeah,
and
and
hadn't
nothing.
gotten pregnant.
Were you doing that on purpose to get pregnant?
No, I had tried birth control, multiple forms. It made me so sick, nauseous, like throwing up. And I never had a period of time where I could, they usually say that might be the case for a month or so.
Yeah.
I didn't have a month to not go to school and work.
Yeah.
So we tried to be careful, kind of, like I would track, kind of, we would pull out, kind of. And then eventually I was like, we probably should have gotten pregnant by now.
Yeah.
And at that point, I wasn't ready to get pregnant in the sense of I want to be pregnant so bad, but I was ready Like if I got pregnant, I would have been excited about it.
Because you've been married for 2 years?
2.5-ish, I want to say, which is crazy in retrospect that I thought I was ready at that point.
Typical
But I was done
culture.
with school. Yeah. And I mean, anyway, so then we started trying. We tried for 8 months or so. Then we started doing infertility stuff. It's a long journey. They give you Clomid at first. That didn't work. We ended up doing IUIs, artificial insemination. During my third IUI, I got a cyst, and it was an endometrioma, which is, it just means I have endometriosis, which I didn't know up until that point. And so I was diagnosed with at least stage 4, I think, endometriosis, and then was told you will probably need to do IVF to get pregnant. And then we took a long break, found a new doctor, and did IVF. My twins I got 5 embryos, and first 2 we put in were the twins.
Oh my, so you still have 3 left?
Still have 3 left. Yeah, one's a bench warmer though, the doctor said. They give them grades of
how like they'll be able to handle going into the whole body.
Yes, and how quality they are. Yeah. So we always joke about that bench warmer. So who knows? But
well, and IVF's really expensive, and being like so young and knowing like, okay, I'm gonna need to do IVF to have a baby, and that's thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars. Was that really hard to hear, or like what were your thoughts when you knew you had to do IVF?
Yeah, I was pretty devastated for a good 2.5 years of infertility. Yeah. I forget because you just forget, but infertility is such a bitch, especially when you're part of this culture where I would feel okay and then get on Instagram and someone had announced a pregnancy, and it was just like a constant
reminder.
grief.
Yeah.
It was bad. It was really hard. We were young, and I was like, why do I have to pay $30,000 to get a baby and no one else has to? And people are getting pregnant left and right. And anyway, yes, it was really hard on my body, just really hard. I think it's hard on a marriage. I built up a lot of resentment because I was having to do so much with my body.
Yeah.
And that's just how it is biologically. It's kind of a full-time job to figure out how much medicine to take. There's just a whole language in that whole world. And I'm incredibly fortunate because I got pregnant on my first time implanting, which is pretty rare.
But it did take you 2.5 years to get to that point?
Yeah. So from starting to try to getting pregnant with the twins, I want to say was 3-ish years, but there were breaks in between.
That's a long time.
Really long.
When you want to be pregnant, 3 years, 3 months is hard.
Yes. No, I mean, people will tell me they're trying to get pregnant and, month 2, they're crying. And I'm like, I get it. I've gone through infertility, but I'm like, it's devastating. In your mind, you are expecting the pregnancy test. You're thinking of, it's such a huge thing.
Yeah.
And so to have month after month after month after month after month of not getting pregnant, it really, really took a toll. And I think my mental health had gotten better from college years, but kind of got worse during that time frame again.
Well, and then it kind of seemed like you said it got even worse because you had to get off your medication while you were pregnant.
Yeah.
How was that? You should have been on Zoloft. You can take Zoloft when you're pregnant, except you might have complications. All 3 of my babies were NICU babies. And
really?
I think that could have been a part in it. Just because all 3 of them, I'm like, okay.
But you know what? Being an anxious mom can affect them in utero too.
Yeah, no, yeah.
In hindsight, the reason I went off of it, they said you can stay on, but I think with SSRIs, there's sometimes delayed lung development.
That's what happened.
And because I had twins, I just knew they were going to come early. I had a hunch, and it's also very common. So I was like, I just don't want to. I felt like in my situation specifically, it was worth going off. My pregnancy was miserable. I hated it. Really, really hated it, which is, I was grateful. I was immensely grateful. But I think people underestimate sometimes, and maybe this was just an infertility thing, but I didn't hate it because I was uncomfortable and sick, even though I was all of those things. I was so consumed all day, every day with the thought that something was going to go wrong with my pregnancy. And I had no trust in my body because my body couldn't get me pregnant. And I just thought my body's going to fail and I'm going to lose these babies and I'm going to have to start all over again. And I genuinely don't think I can do that. Like, I didn't think I could handle it.
Yeah.
And so I also had a subchorionic hematoma. So I was bleeding in my first trimester.
And that Most terrifying thing ever.
I went to the doctor and they were like, yeah, we'll just like have to see if you miscarry. Okay.
Send me home with and no anxiety meds. Yeah. Like calm me down.
Prozac. Yeah. So it was pregnancy was hard. I was doing with twins too. You feel more anxious. It was my first pregnancy. I was doing the kick counts and I would like, okay, there was 10 kicks, but not 12 kicks. Should I go to the hospital? I got so many unnecessary ultrasounds, spent thousands of dollars getting ultrasounds, like just was not mentally well during that either. Massively, immensely grateful I was pregnant, but I think still just kind of in that infertility mindset. Then I had a pretty, people are going to be like, this bitch.
No, we love it. Come on. Give it to me.
And then I did have a pretty bad birth experience as well. Emergency C-section, had to get a blood transfusion. But I think postpartum, I got immediately back on my medicine. There was a lapse, like a week-long lapse. I was not okay.
Yeah.
And I felt my medicine kick in. And it's been pretty uphill since then. So
okay, good.
I'm good now, you guys.
When were they delivered? How far?
34 weeks.
34. Mm-hmm. And that's pretty good for twins,
it was
right?
good. Yeah. I had preeclampsia.
Of course you did.
Yeah. Like, what else? Let me think.
Yeah.
Let's see. It wasn't too crazy. It was like, I did have preeclampsia. They were like, we could keep them in a little longer, but let's just deliver you. You're 34 weeks. They were in the NICU for a few weeks. And
which is also so hard.
NICU
leaving the
sucks.
hospital without your babies
NICU sucks.
so
I didn't
hard.
know all 3 of your babies were in the NICU.
I got to bring Bentley home with me.
That's good.
But my boys, they had to stay like only a week.
Still.
But it's, just leaving and then.
Well, especially when you have another kid at home.
Yeah.
I was grateful I didn't have other kids at home because that would have been even worse.
Did you breastfeed or pump? What'd you do? Because that's a hard thing with the NICU.
Yep.
You have to like pump, but they're not even with you.
Yep.
So you come home to like get a break, but it's not really a break because you miss your babies and then you're pumping the hours that they should be awake.
People are like, oh, you got to sleep. I'm like, no, I was pumping every 2 hours.
Unless you don't care about your milk supply, which looking back, I should have not even tried because my breast milk is water. Like literally.
My breast milk sucked too.
So bad. I had to supplement with all my kids. So then with my third, I got a breast reduction. So with my third, I knew there was a chance it might not even work. Didn't. Got mastitis day 2 because all my milk ducts were gone. So the milk couldn't get out. And I was like, formula, and he's my fattest, cutest baby. So I'm like,
maybe he'll be your smartest too.
No,
you never know.
I was formula fed, 1.9 in high school. It's fine. Were you breastfed, Haley?
I was only breastfed for 3 months.
There you go. 30 on the ACT, only breastfed for 3 months.
Formula companies.
Come on, sponsor us. Sponsor us. Take us. Infamil.
Seriously, I'll take anything.
What's the other one? Bobby, all of them. We'll take it.
Yes.
But so they were in the NICU for 3 weeks.
Mm-hmm. Which all things considered could have been worse. One thing that I appreciated about the NICU for how long they were there, those babies are the most scheduled children.
Oh, yeah. Eat, sleep, repeat.
No, it started in the NICU. Like, seriously, I took them home and I just kept doing exactly what the NICU said.
Yes.
We woke them up every 3 hours, always together, did the same exact routine, and they slept. They've been phenomenal sleepers since they were tiny. Even still, they're in their cribs we put them down at 8 p.m. and I don't usually get them out in the morning until like 8:30 a.m.
Incredible.
It's
they're
amazing.
2, right?
2.5.
Oh my goodness. And guys, they really are so freaking cute.
They're the best. This age is so fun.
So fun.
It's so fun. And I feel like being a mom, I always said growing up, I was never baby wanting to hold babies. I was never that kind of woman. And now that my girls are 2.5, I'm like, oh, this is where I thrive.
This is the stage.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I think it's only going to get better. Just now that they're people, I love interacting with them. And I loved them as babies, of course, obviously. But it didn't fulfill me in the same way that I think some women get fulfillment from that stage.
See, and I'm the opposite.
You like the babies.
I like the baby.
Yes.
Once they hit 3, I'm like, somebody else.
You're like, give me a newborn to snuggle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And again, women just have their different cups that they need to be filled.
Exactly. So for me, this stage, I'm just loving so much. I mean, they give me a run for my money every day.
Yeah.
Bentley's out of town a lot, so there's a lot of solo parenting, but it's so fun. I feel like newborn stage was kind of lonely for me, Whereas now I'm like, they're my friends. Like I'm
Yeah.
never alone. If anything, I want more alone time because
hide in the closet for a second.
Seriously. But they're like my friends.
Yeah.
And so I really, really love this stage.
I think the question that always comes after like motherhood and kids is, do you want more kids?
Mm-hmm.
And is that something you see for you, or do you feel complete? I mean, twins is a lot.
Yeah.
And isn't like, even though you did IVF, could the embryo split again and you get twins again? Is that like a possibility?
Pretty rare, but a possibility.
Okay.
My mother-in-law's like, just put in 2 more. I'm like, nope. You could not pay me enough to do twins again.
No.
I will say I feel pretty done, but there's a little sliver of maybe. I mean, the twins are 2.5.
So young still.
Maybe when they're 5, I'll make a decision for sure. I don't know though. I think with twins, and this is probably just a weird feeling that I have about it, but I kind of feel like an additional child would feel like, I almost feel like I would need to have 2
Yeah, they
more.
feel left out.
Yeah.
Because they have this bond that
yes.
a sibling bond and a twin bond are 2 different bonds.
Yeah. So I have this weird feeling in my brain of like, I either need to be done or have 2 more, and I'm for sure not going to have 2 more, but that's not even real. That's kind of made up. So maybe, I mean, we have 3 embryos, so maybe, but likely not, but we'll see.
We'll see. You do make beautiful, cute babies.
Thank you.
So
thank you. I know. And I have those embryos. So I'm like, who are they?
What do they look like?
I know.
We got to know.
I know.
I want to talk now about your faith crisis,
Let's
your deconstruction, because that, for some people, they think that's your whole personality. So let's talk about it. When did that start? Was it before the twins or after?
It was before. I think a lot of my faith crisis lined up with my infertility. I was already questioning things, noticing things I didn't love. A huge part of my faith crisis was one of my friends came out as gay, so that was a big part of it. A lot of kind of separate threads that kind of intertwined. Infertility, I do think there was a lot of messages that I had learned growing up in the church about God's timing and God's will and even the atonement, things like that, that when shit hit the fan in that way with infertility, it wasn't adding up for me personally. And it was creating more, it was making things worse.
Yeah.
The messaging that and I know that that's not the case for everyone, but for me it was. And so that coupled with my friend coming out, having questions about women's roles in the church, that all kind of slowly escalated until I was ready to look into church history and things like that. And it was a very slow process. I joke that it's the frog in the pot of water that the Mormon church always warns us of, where it was almost like one day I turned around and realized, oh, I don't think I really believe any of this anymore.
Because before that, did you ever have questions? Like, did you ever have anybody in your life that was part of the LGBTQ community? Or did you ever question, why doesn't my mom have the priesthood or things like that? Did those questions ever come up until that point?
When I was in high school, I had a lot of issues with modesty. Like a bishop called me in because I had worn a bikini that his wife had seen on Facebook, and he chastised me. I had a second counselor in my ward pull me aside after I had given this lesson that I had so thoughtfully prepared in young women, and he pulled me into a room alone and said, "Your shirt is too low cut, and girl, what? There's nothing to see.
There ain't no titties."
Yeah, I'm like, sorry,
pervert.
You saw my sternum? Like, I'm
What?
so sorry. Anyway, I think a lot of that was because my dad was in and out of the picture. These men kind of felt like
need to be the father figure.
Yes. So I had that in high school, and I also had bishop confessions. I had a boyfriend and gave a hand job and that sort of thing. So there was friction, but I never, ever, ever, ever wondered if it was true. I never considered that it wouldn't be true. Even on my mission, I don't think I ever considered it wasn't true. There was friction. Missionary work felt massively inefficient. It didn't really make sense to me that they were sending people out to do this when it so obviously wasn't working. But I didn't ever question, is the church actually true? Like, it was just true.
Yeah.
It just was. And so it wasn't until, I don't know the exact moment. That's the thing. It was kind of just this very slow paradigm shift. And there was, certain facts along the way and certain things that kind of slowly led to the point where I realized, oh, I actually just don't think this is true. But that didn't come until quite later in life. And I was really, I mean, I talk to tons of people now on my podcast. There's all sorts of ways to be Mormon. I was a Provo, Utah Mormon girl through and through. Yes, my dad was inactive, but other than that, it was my life.
Yeah.
Went to seminary, was in the young women's, did all the girls' camps. Like I was very, very, very much a part of it. And I think that's also why, I mean, we can get into this later too, but when people question why people like me still have a lot to say about the church, it's because it's still to this day informs so much of who I am and how I operate and the, you know, things I'm trying to unpack or some things I want to keep, because it was my entire childhood, adolescence, young adulthood.
Yeah.
All of it was so entangled with the church.
When you started figuring out, oh, I don't think this aligns with me and my values, was Bentley on the same page with you? Was that something you guys did together, or was one of you more ahead than the other in certain ways?
Mm-hmm. I was a little bit ahead, and I would feel something and then I would tell Bentley, and Bentley would be like, yeah, you make a great point. That's true. And then he would learn something and be like, I learned this. And I was like, oh, wow, I didn't know that. Very, very hand in hand for the most part. It's not that there weren't some little things along the way of like, you know, it wasn't frictionless, but I would say, especially compared to a lot of people, I think we got really lucky that we were pretty much doing it together.
Yeah.
And I think that was such a gift. I think it brought us closer together. And I think that it just is really hard when it's not that way.
Oh, I can imagine it being a struggle for sure.
Yeah.
You obviously have the Girls Camp podcast. Was that something that you had thought about doing before ever coming out of the church? Like, did you ever want to have a podcast?
No, actually. The reason the way Girls Camp podcast was born is in the very thick of leaving. It felt like everywhere I went and anyone I talked to, it somehow was like, people are leaving the church and people have so much to say about it and people are learning these things about the church and we're learning things from each other. It just was kind of everywhere. And even just with our close friends, there was like a year and a half where that was literally all we talked about was, did you know this? And did you learn this? And what are your parents saying when you say this? And so I just realized, okay, I'm really fortunate to have so many people around me to talk about this with. And I know that there's a lot of people out there who don't have that, who are going through this and don't have that support, who don't have people to just vent to or talk to about it or learn from. And so I, to Bentley one day, was like, I feel like this would be a really interesting podcast. And I also wanted to do something that was more, I mean, I always kind of struggle to describe my own podcast, but
same.
I didn't want it to be so heavy or intense, which it still is at times.
Well, it's heavy topics.
For sure. But I wanted to bring an element of levity to it, of casualness, of girly popness.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know? And so it was scary. I mean, it's a very scary thing to do anyway, as you know. And then you add on the element of, well, okay, half the state's probably going to hate me. And
yeah, because that's the thing. Religion and politics, I feel like, are the two most intense things you could talk about. Very polarizing. People are very opinionated and heated about it. So to put yourself in that fire, essentially, is very brave.
Thanks.
Very brave. How did your family and friends feel about it? Were you scared you were going to lose family and friends because you were going to be so open about the fact that you disagree with the church basically wholeheartedly?
Yeah. I feel so fortunate. I couldn't do this if I didn't have the family I have.
Yeah.
And I mean, my mom, I just went on Dr. Phil and talked about how I don't believe in God. And my mom is like, go HAYLEY. And she doesn't, I told her not to watch. She's so active. She was Relief Society president. She got released because they just moved. My stepdad's in the bishopric. Yeah. He's the second counselor in the bishopric. My little sister is Relief Society something in her ward. Very active. And I'm just so grateful for them. I also think that having them in my life gives me a constant reminder of how fulfilling the church can be for people and keeps me more grounded than I think I would be otherwise, because the people I love the most are active members, which can also be complicated. And I'm sure they feel very complicated about me as well. But I don't think I would have been able to do it if I didn't know that I would be okay.
Yeah. And
it's been okay. I mean, even my extended family, people are just, and I alluded to this before. I think people have the personality I have. I think people are like, she's going to do what she's going to do. But I'm just lucky that they're willing to love and accept me. And I think my family's really good at just setting their own boundaries. I'll sometimes tell my mom, oh, I just interviewed someone, you should listen. But most of the time, she just doesn't listen. The Dr. Phil episode, she was like, what do you think? And I was like, I probably wouldn't listen. I probably wouldn't watch it. And she's like, great. And that's hard. Like, I don't know how she does it. That'd be really hard.
Yeah, choosing to just
love
you.
Yep. And she's like, I love you. It's probably going to trigger her to hear me say certain things about Mormonism or about God. And so she just chooses not to listen. And she doesn't tell me her stuff about the church that might trigger me. And so I feel really lucky for that. I feel privileged because I think that has allowed me to do what I do. And I know there's a lot of people who want to talk about it more, who would probably like to talk about it publicly, and they literally can't because the repercussions are too intense.
Yeah, I think that's a common thing I hear a lot. Because when I went on your podcast, I told you my upbringing's different. Like my self-worth wasn't in the church. My parents never were like, Josie's this perfect like it was never who I was. Mm-hmm. And that's how it is for a lot of people, and their parents, they don't give them the freedom to think or to feel or to speak how they want. So I commend your mom for giving you the ability to feel like you can talk to her freely and like be able to have the platform that you do, because it isn't technically really a safe place for active members.
Yeah.
It can trigger them and it can hurt them. With that being said, I feel like you also receive a lot of hate from members, which is interesting because I wouldn't, like I said, I'm not a member of the church, but I do believe in God. And if you believe in God, you want to be Christ-like and you want to be kind. And some of the things that are said to you are the opposite of that. Even if they think what you're saying is disrespectful or hurts their feelings, the way they speak to you is very un-Christ-like. How have you been able to manage some of the, ignorant comments that you get and hate that you get?
Yeah, I think that it would have radicalized me much more.
Yeah.
Did I not have a counterexample in my own family? Because, and I mean, the internet's not a good example of any group of people anyway, internet trolls specifically, but the way that people can use anything, but maybe religion especially, to justify hatred and unkindness and disrespect and all of those things is really discouraging. I do think that I'm able to separate. I think that internet hate is a whole thing. I'm sure you have so many thoughts on it too. I think with religion, it's a little bit twofold, where one part of me thinks I've been able to handle the hate better because I know it's not about me at all. It has nothing to do with me. I just made a joke about someone's religion, and I'm going to do that because I don't think that I need to not make jokes about something that I no longer respect. But I can understand that when someone comes at me for that, it's because that's triggering something in them. It's not me. It's not personal at all.
It's the joke. It's
exactly.
not HAYLEY RAWLE.
Yes. And it's just, it's about something that they are. The thing is with Mormonism too, and many different like a lot of Christianity, I think, is this way, but it's so tied to people's identity that if you say something about Mormonism, it's like you just said, I hate you. I don't hate Mormons at all. I don't. Do I hate the Mormon church? I wouldn't even say hate, but do I have a lot of comments and critiques? Yes. But I think that when I say things about the Mormon church, people think that I'm calling out them specifically, which, you know what? I fully understand because I felt that same way 5 years ago.
Yeah.
So I get it. And I think that to me, that's one of the things that can be really tricky about religion, is that when identity is so entwined with something, it's complicated and it's tricky. And that's why you sometimes see parents choose the church over their gay child, because their identity is so wrapped up in the church, as opposed to not allowing them sometimes to maybe access their humanity of, I'm a mother to a child. And so anyway, that's a very long-winded answer, but I do think that I have a pretty good level of detachment. However, there's definitely things that throw me in a spin. And those are really interesting because it usually touches on something that an insecurity that I have. So I can read 50 comments.
Yeah.
Why is it your personality? Do. And then on a certain day or at a certain time, or if someone calls out a certain thing, then it hurts. And I'm like, okay, what do I have to sit with there? Or what do I have to look at there? Because hate comments, I think no one deserves them, and I wish I didn't get them, and I wish nobody got them, but they can be a really good teacher as to what you haven't sat with and worked through.
But then at the same time, you never want your progression as a person to be dependent on these comments.
Totally.
Like, you don't want, oh, this person said I did this. Oh, let me sit on that. Well, actually, I don't need to fucking sit on that.
Totally.
Because you're wrong.
Yeah.
You know, you have to be able to also identify, like, no, that's actually a you problem, not a me problem.
Yeah, I'm so glad you said that, because I had a lot of people critiquing my voice, not Mormons. It was actually listeners of the podcast, so presumably ex-Mormons, I don't know. And I was so out of sorts about it, and I was literally thinking, okay, I need to hire a coach so I don't have vocal fry and I don't say like and I don't sound like a valley girl. And I posted about it on my stories and had so many people so kind say, I love your voice.
Yeah.
I was like, why the fuck am I going to go out of my way to appease someone who wants to write a review about how much they hate my voice? And guess what? Probably a lot of people hate my voice. Great. Not, how are you ever going to please everyone on planet Earth? You can't. I wish I could and I want to, but you can't. And that's another really good lesson of being on the internet, or, you know, there's lots of ways you can learn that lesson, but it has been a good learning experience in that way of, to your point, sometimes a critique can hurt because maybe there is something you need to sit with. Yeah. And a lot of times you shouldn't be taking criticism from internet trolls. You should be taking criticism that is
people you'd ask advice for.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, if I don't respect you, if I wouldn't ask you for advice, I'm not going to take your opinion seriously. Ever. That's something I think if you start any form of social media or entrepreneurship or anything like that, you have to know, if you're not going to ask the person for advice, do not give two shits about what they say about you.
That's a great way to go into it.
Today's episode is brought to you by Care Cleaning. Are you tired of spending your weekends scrubbing and dusting instead of enjoying your free time? Well, I have the perfect solution for you. Introducing Care Cleaning, your go-to professional cleaning company, proudly serving Utah County and Salt Lake City for 5 years. With over 50 dedicated employees, they send specialized teams to ensure that your home is cleaned efficiently and effectively. Their high standards mean there is no corner that is looked over. They treat your space like it's their own. Whether you need a one-time deep clean, recurring services, or even help with moving in or out, they got you covered. But wait, there's more. Want to learn how to clean like a pro? Follow them on Instagram at Care Cleaning, where they share their top cleaning tricks and tips. From the best products for every surface to hacks that save you time, they are here to help elevate your cleaning game. Plus, they offer their very own line of cleaning supplies, so you can keep your home sparkling clean just like they do. For more information about their services, you can email scheduling@carecleaning.com or go to their website at www.carecleaning.com. You can also follow them at Care Cleaning on Instagram. I've been using Care Cleaning for over 5 years, and I can honestly say they're the best cleaning service I've used. Love them so much, and I am so glad that they are now a sponsor of Weekly Trash. Thanks, Care Cleaning. But most recently you had your Instagram taken down, which is my nightmare. Truly, I would have broken down.
No, it's scary.
Can you please explain what happened and how you found out and that whole day? Because honestly, that's traumatic. I have like stress thinking about that happening to me.
I know, it's so scary.
This is our livelihood.
I know. It feels like it should be illegal. Meta, don't come for me. But
no, really,
the system is really, really bad. I was in France on a trip with Bentley. Luckily, it was the last day, but I have my personal account and my GIRLSCAMP account, and I clicked into my GIRLSCAMP account, like double click, and a box popped up that said your account has been temporarily suspended. And I think it had a little explanation as to why. I'm not kidding. It automatically refreshed, and that happens when you like see a post. And then I was just out of my account. And the only thing you could do is appeal it. I talked to a bunch of people. They said, usually an account is suspended. It'll be back in 2 days. So that was nice. I was panicked, but I was like, I'm going to enjoy France. We'll be home. I'm going to get it back. And then I didn't get it back, and I didn't get it back. And then I was told it was permanently whatever.
Like through email?
Deactivated. No, I never even got an email. I think when I tried to log in again, it said deactivated, because I could still see like some posts of people I was following, but all my posts were gone. And then it was like gone. And it had been a few days. And I mean, it's such a funny thing because it does feel like such a first world problem, but I mean, it's hours and hours and hours and hours and hours and hours and hours of time.
Blood, sweat, and tears.
Yes. And Bentley, sweet Bentley, my husband, he was like, just start a new account. He's like, you'll probably just get like half your followers at least like in a few days. I was like, that's not how Instagram works. Like, it's not. And no. I know because I started a new account.
With 0 followers.
With 0 followers. I had to.
Yeah.
Because I mean, as a podcaster too, that's the only way you interact with your audience.
Yeah.
So I had to. And I was so defeated. It was so defeating. I literally considered giving up. I was like, you know what? I just don't think I can build from 0 again. And I know that I wasn't, because obviously I still have my podcast listeners and whatnot, but it felt like it.
Oh, it's a huge feeling of defeat.
It sucked really, really bad. The only thing that I think was the reason I got it back is you have to find someone who works for Meta, and they have to put in like a friends and family something for you. They're not supposed to unless you're actually friends or family. So people are really weird about it. Like, I talked to someone who's like, someone help me, but like, I can't give you their name. And someone helped me, and I can't give their name because it's like, they're not supposed to do it. It's like kind of a big deal. So I found someone just by multiple times on my stories, just like, someone please help me. But even still, I think it was 3 months.
Wait, it was that long?
I think it was 3 months, maybe like 2.5. It was over 2. Yeah. I will say, in hindsight, it gave me a second to step back and think and take a breath that I don't think I would have taken otherwise. Gave me some new perspective on social media generally, and I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm doom scrolling all day to this day, but I actually do think I'm glad it happened. Only because I got it back.
Yeah, let's be real here. Okay, yeah.
Whoever's universe, if you're listening, don't take it again.
No.
I'm very, very grateful I got it back. I mean, and it's so silly, the numbers of it all. It made me realize how attached I was to all of it. And I definitely still am, but it gave me some perspective on like how attached I was. And I'm appreciative of the perspective it gave me. And I do think that I'm moving a little bit in different ways now.
Do you have any idea what even caused it?
I think it was mass reporting. They don't tell you. So there's no way I could know. I was told by someone that it could have just been an algorithm thing, like something got flagged. I mean, think of the things I talk about. I had just done an episode on abuse. So I had some reels about domestic abuse. I also have a hunch it could have been that person's former partner who reported and got a bunch of people to report, or it could have just been one disgruntled Mormon or one disgruntled anyone. So I don't know. It's a terrible system, in my opinion, that, what if a group of people just go and start reporting your stuff?
Yeah.
And then they just take down your whole account. It's
like,
crazy.
Why? Like, you would think Meta would then review your account in depth, really look at it and be like, okay, like, let's be honest here. There are pedophilia accounts.
There's
and
porn accounts.
Like there is,
I see them I'm like, what?
Or like people on TikTok specifically, they'll do these lives where I don't know how I got on this side of TikTok where this guy.
I know me just saying porn accounts. I'm like, they pop. No,
I don't follow them. No, it's great. Ew, gross. No,
like on my
weird. My burner account. It's crazy. No, on TikTok, this guy, he like does these videos where it looks like he's like a chiropractor, but so like these women are going and it's porn. Like they're trying to do a spin-off of porn, but they look like, a medical chiropractor. And I'm like, how the fuck is this okay? But somebody practicing their freedom of speech is not.
I know. I will say it made me like feel, it was really scary almost to think how much power a company like Meta has
over your life
was scary.
Yeah.
And like, not to sound like a conspiracy theorist here, but I was just realizing they didn't have to give it back to me. They have no legal obligation. They could and you know what? People lose their personal accounts. They lose all their memories. They lose everything. And Meta, Instagram, they don't have to do anything. It's a private company. They are not obliged to keep our accounts running. And it did make me realize you should have backups. But the problem is, now I have my other Girls Camp account I started, but it's like, what? People were saying start an email list. I'm like, yeah, sure. But like, that doesn't make up for it. No. And so, yeah, it did make me realize, wow, that's scary that this company has that much power over so many things.
So like
me included.
Meta truly has more power than the government. Honestly.
Yeah, I mean, think about it, because that's Meta and TikTok. I was lucky I still had my TikTok, but Instagram's different.
I feel like Instagram, for some reason, seems more legitimate to me. Like, I don't really care what I post on TikTok. I'm like, because I'm not engaged with my audience on TikTok the way I am on Instagram.
Instagram's more community-based.
Yes, like I recognize the names. I recognize, the people who are commenting. I'm DMing people. I'm really engaged and interacting with them. Whereas TikTok, a lot of the times it's random people who are just liking my videos from the For You page. I don't really know these people, nor do I really care. Like, if I get hate on TikTok, I'm like, awesome, sweet, free engagement. Thank you.
Yeah.
Where Instagram, it seems so much more personal.
Like they know you.
Yeah. So that it is very, very scary that they have that control.
It was. And I'm really grateful I got it back. Very grateful for the person who helped me. If you're listening, shout out, you know who you are.
Yeah.
It's been really nice to get it back, and I hope it never happens again.
Yeah, but like you said, you got that break for a minute, and maybe you thought about this during the break, maybe you didn't. But talking about religion all the time would have to be draining, exhausting. There has to come a point where maybe, and maybe not, I don't know, where when you're leaving a religion, you want to maybe close that chapter and be like, I feel good, I feel free, I don't want to keep digging into this. It almost is painful to keep reopening wounds that I've healed.
Yeah.
Do you ever see yourself not talking about the Mormon faith?
Yeah, that was a big part of losing that account. It was actually, I lost it, and then I think I was beefing with someone on TikTok yet again.
Confrontational HAYLEY.
Yeah, I mean, hey, if you talk about ex-Mormons, I'm gonna get tagged.
She's coming.
And if it's bad enough, I'm gonna say something. Yeah. That's my rule. I only engage if people are saying shitty things about people who leave the church or leave the church and still talk about it. So someone did, and then I stitched them, and then they said it was a joke, and I had just misunderstood their joke, whatever. And anyway, I was feeling so... I told Bentley, I'm like, this feels too familiar. And I think that there's a lot of value, obviously, in doing what I do. That's why I'm doing it. People need you. Yeah, hopefully. I mean, I think that it's helpful to people. And the reason, also to clarify, the reason I respond to the reason I stitch those is because I know that there are baby ex-Mormons who are scrolling TikTok and they see someone say something like that and they feel stupid and they feel embarrassed and they feel invalidated. And I think it is helpful for people to see someone down the line kind of explain to them, like, no, you can talk about this as long as you need to, and here's why, and whatever. Anyway, I was just realizing that it brought kind of to the surface this feeling of, I don't think I want to be doing this forever, which I always knew. There are ex-Mormon, John DeLynn, he's on year 26 or something. And I think there's ways you can do it without being as personally invested, and kind of looking at like a John DeLynn maybe looks at Mormonism now as his special interest and his job, and his personal stuff has probably long been worked through. So I think there's so many ways you can talk about it as long as you want to. But I realized for me that I don't know when, but I'm starting to consider what my next chapter will be. And I think beyond just the Mormonism stuff, I think that, the people I look up to most that I've kind of watched on the internet, I'm now lucky enough to call close friends of mine. And I've seen them reinvent themselves. And I think that there's something so beautiful about being able to do that. And I think it's really scary to do because you build up an audience based on what you're talking about and who you are. And then to change feels scary. And, you know, my podcast is my income now. And Bentley makes money as well. But it's income. It's my job. It's my career. And so I'm kind of in this stage right now where I think it'll be a minute. Yeah. I still do have a lot to say. I still have like things I want to get everything out there before, but I definitely am kind of trying to open up to possibilities and opportunities. I love podcasting, so I hope to always be podcasting. It's a fuck ton of work as well. So
people do not understand until they're in it.
Why is it so much work?
Like long form content, like YouTube vloggers and podcasters, it's a different world. And specifically podcasts, because there's no For You page, there's no homepage that's like getting people to click your page.
Yep.
It's just different. You have to not only build your podcast, but you have to build your social media channels to then get people to then listen to your podcast.
Yep.
And like we were talking about it before, like when it comes to ad revenue and getting sponsors, it's like the wild, wild west out there. Like people don't understand it. They don't get it. Even though podcast has been going on forever, there's so many successful podcasts. I could name a million, well, not a million, like 10, but like people don't understand the value in putting their ads and putting their brand into a podcast. So then you are selling yourself. You're now a salesman, Instagram networking person trying to get guests. You're also your social media promoter. You're also the podcast, the host, the producer, the film. Like it is so much work. And I just admire the hell out of you because I feel like you and me were in the same starting game plan where we started with zero.
Yep. Nobody knew who we were.
Nobody knew who the fuck we were.
Which a lot of people who start a podcast already have a platform.
Yeah. They're either A-list or Z-list celebrities, huge influencers, big entrepreneurs. We weren't that.
Yeah.
So I'm really proud of you. I'm proud of us.
You. I feel like you have your shit together. And I know you're going to say, no, I don't. But 2 episodes a week. You have the Patreon.
You have Patreon too?
I just started a Patreon.
Yes.
But I feel like you're so consistent too. Like people know exactly what to expect. And yeah, I think that it's difficult to understand that. I also feel like there's sometimes a misconception that like there must be oodles of money.
Yeah, like we're all Alex Cooper.
Yes. I wish.
No.
$40 million whatever deal. I mean, that's the dream.
That's literally the goal. It's a very insane goal, but
dream big, baby.
Be delusional.
Yeah, of course.
I think you have to be a little delusional, a little naive to start this.
Yeah.
I know I was.
Yeah.
When I started this, I did not understand the playing field at all.
Yeah.
I literally emailed Barstool Sports and I was like, I'm going to be the biggest podcast in the world. I'm like, literally, if anybody from Barstool is like has that email, please send it to me. And like,
no, look, one day when you are with Barstool,
I wouldn't want to be at Barstool now. I wouldn't want to be at Barstool now. Actually, if they're listening, I take that back.
I'm like, hey, money talks,
send me
baby.
the checks. The check. I'm interested, Dave. I'm interested.
Dave Portnoy turns it off.
He's like, fuck that bitch.
Well, never
Turns
mind.
on Taylor Swift. Okay. But seriously, I commend you. I applaud you. You're amazing. And I'm grateful that we've now become friends.
Me too.
Because I feel like I was really threatened and intimidated by you for a long time. And it wasn't until I met you at the Daily Central Co. where I was like, wait, she's fun. I like her a lot. So I'm glad. Shout out to Jenna for inviting us both.
For bringing us together.
Because I even told her, because she had just been on Girls Camp when she came on here.
Yeah.
And I was like, is Hayley scary in real life? Like, and she's like, no, she's the best.
Jenna's known me since I was 15.
That's what you like dated her brother or something? Yeah, that's what she was saying.
Her brother-in-law, yeah.
Yeah, and I was like, okay. And she's like, trust me, like you would like her. And I'm like, okay. So I'm so glad we have this.
Well, thank you.
Now.
I'm so glad too. I feel like there is a little bit of, I mean, no matter what you're doing, I'm really working on, and I've gotten so much better at by doing this job too, the abundance mindset.
I was just about to say that.
Of all ships rise, and the more people who are successful, it just shows you what's possible and it opens up opportunities. And I mean, I've seen that again and again. And I think I'm a naturally competitive person, which I'm trying to grow out of because I don't think it serves me really much at all. And I think, I mean, Maddie Murphy, she from very early days in my podcast, she came on my podcast.
Same.
And she,
so supportive.
JC came
So
on
supportive.
and taught me things. And Emily Kaiser promoted me. And that's, I mean, that was huge.
That speaks volumes.
That was life-changing for me. And so I feel like having that mentality is so important. I think as women in any business venture or just in anything, we've been trained to be competitive.
Yep.
And trained to see things that way.
Scarcity mindset.
Exactly. And so it's been really nice to not feel that way. And yeah, I'm so appreciative of you too. I feel like there's a really fun Utah podcast scene.
There is. And maybe something cool will come out of it. I don't know.
I was like,
who knows?
Pay attention, because there may be a business lunch with another Utah podcaster coming
We may be
up.
going to lunch. But before you leave,
yes.
you need to do Trash Topican.
Ooh.
You need to pick a topic out of that trash can that we'll both answer.
I love stuff like this.
It's so like
I wish I
random
could
and
answer
funny
all
and
of
stupid.
them.
That's what Maddie did. She literally read every single one. I'm like, okay, well now what are we gonna do?
You're like,
So,
okay, great. Okay. Ooh, biggest turnoff.
What's the biggest turnoff for HAYLEY
that's
RAWLE?
Such a good question. Biggest turnoff.
I have a couple.
Why don't you start?
My biggest turnoff is bad hygiene. Which like I'm not perfect. Sometimes I have stinky breath. Sometimes, but like, just take a bath.
Yes.
No, don't take a bath. Take a shower. I think baths are gross. Sorry. Bad hygiene, and then also anger.
Ooh.
I find anger to be extremely unattractive.
Yeah.
And maybe it's, daddy issues, having a dad that showed anger a lot. And also I show anger a lot. I have that feisty Latina blood, and it's something I'm working on. So when I see someone else have anger, I immediately shut down. I immediately feel unattracted, unsafe. And I even if it's like the slightest bit, even if it's something stupid like watching a football game, and I see them get so angry over a stupid touchdown, which to them it's not stupid, but to me it's extremely stupid.
Yeah.
Immediately turned off, want nothing to do with you. I need 5 days away from you.
Yeah, you know what? That's so true. I was talking to Bentley the other day, because Bentley very, very, very rarely raises his voice. And
Same
even
with
when
Caleb.
he does, it's not even really. Yeah. But the other day, he sort of raised his voice a little bit, and I was like, And he was like, well,
well, you do it.
He literally said, well, you do it. And I said, I'm a woman and it's different. I'm sorry, it's different.
It's not as scary.
And it's different because there's an age-old power dynamic. And I was like, I don't want to raise my voice either. Let me be clear. And that is something that my kids got to an age where I all of a sudden was like, oh, fuck. Like we
need to dial it down.
We can't. Like we just can't. And it's not worth it. And anyway. So when Bentley said that, I was like, it's different for you though. And especially and he has never to our children, but I'm like, especially to our children, it's very different. It carries a very different weight because you're a man. So I agree with that. And then the other thing, piggybacking off your hygiene thing, when facial hair is growing in, but it's just itchy, scratchy.
Oh, it's not like all the way
literally,
in.
Bentley will start kissing me and I say, go shave.
Well, it can give you a rash. You can get like,
it hurts.
You get like burns.
It
like
hurts. It's scratchy and tickly. So I'm like, go. I was like, oh, okay, I'm gonna go shave.
That's okay. So we have anger hygiene,
and stubbly, scratchy scruff.
Scruff.
Yep.
You heard it first.
You heard it first.
You heard it first on Weekly Trash. HAYLEY RAWLE, thanks so much for coming.
Thank you for having me.
So fun. Everyone go listen to Girls Camp. Even if you're not Mormon, give it a shot. Who knows?
Yeah, there might be some episodes
Even
for
if you're
you.
a
My
Mormon
mom
girly,
came on. My mom and sisters.
Everyone should go listen to that
That's a good episode.
and my episode.
And
I think
Josie's,
those are some safe picks
there you
for
go.
the Mormon girlies in here. But I love you. Really, I think
love
you're
you.
amazing.
Thank you for having me. And I appreciate, like you said, I know that a big portion of your audience is LDS. And I also really appreciate talking about different things.
Yeah.
Truly. And it's fun I kind of forget that there's a lot of people who don't know. Like I have lots of lore.
You do have lots of lore.
So it's fun to chat about the lore. So thanks for the opportunity.
Well, you're welcome back anytime, HAYLEY. And I might be seeing you for lunch. So I'll see you later.
Stay tuned, everyone.
Everyone have the best week ever. Leave me a 5-star review telling me you love me because I love you. And don't forget to take out your trash. Bye.